Just 1.5 years after we showed the T50, Gordon Murray is now introducing his next new supercar. He's calling it the T.33, and in many ways it's a little brother to the T50. So we'll see a car with a naturally aspirated V12 engine, no turbo, and we'll see a car that's light, the Gordon Murray hallmark. So let's meet Gordon and let him take us through his new T.33 supercar.
Hi, Gordon.
Now, we are in this car park, which is a very nice car park, but it's a fairly forbidding place. But perhaps you could just tell us what's above, about 54 acres of really rather lovely countryside.
Yeah, I mean, this is so exciting for us. We've just started, in fact, digging up the ground for our new HQ here at Windlesham. It's a 54-acre park, and actually a park land that goes back to the 18th century, so with some lovely mature trees and lakes and a wonderful site. And that'll be the home of GMA and ultimately the home of the whole of the Gordon Murray Group. So the first building we're doing is actually for automotive, where the T.33 will be built.
Right. Gordon took me upstairs, and I have to say it's the most magnificent facility with the most beautiful trees and just wonderful. I mean, it's an incredibly impressive facility.
It's going to be a lovely home for all of us in the future, yeah.
Yeah. So, more important things, I suppose. Let's talk about this wonderful new car. So, it follows up from the T50, but it's a very different machine, Gordon.
It couldn't be more different. The similarities are actually the ethos, you know, our 7 main principles that we've promised T50 customers and owners that we would stick to absolutely rigorously, and we have, of course. But from an architectural point of view, it's a very different motor car.
And looking at the design of it, first thing is no splitters, no spoilers, no big gawpy mouths or first of all, why don't you like the splitters and spoilers and big wings?
I just think because we can, we're a very small, flexible business, you know, as a car business, and because we can, we're just knocking all the current trends. There seems to be a competition at the moment to see how outrageous you can get the next supercar, you know, with all these holes and ducts. And in a lot of cases, they are aerodynamic devices. In a lot of cases, they're just styling bits and pieces. There's nothing on this car that has not got a function. That's one of our rules, if you like. The way we get the downforce is from some quite trick aero.
But no fan. Of course, those who remember that or know about the T50 know that you've got a very unusual fan at the back, a very distinctive styling feature and also aerodynamic feature. But this hasn't got a fan. So, very briefly, how do you get that ground effect?
So as you recall, the way the fan works is instead of having a very gradual diffuser, we have a huge step up, and we remove the boundary layer with the fan, the dirty air, let's call it, with the fan, and we force the air to follow that. And in the many, many months we had of CFD, wind tunnel testing, we switched the fan off once, and we found that we didn't lose all the downforce, and we found out that the base suction, the low pressure behind the car, was actually still drawing some of the air through that duct, and a bit of the diffuser was working. Of course, nowhere near as effectively as the fan did, but it was working. So we immediately sort of put that idea in the bank, and when we did 33, we spent another few months developing a step diffuser, not quite so vicious as the T51, and using the base suction, so we call that passive boundary layer control as opposed to fan assisted. We only get about a 30% increase as opposed to the 100%, let's say, the fan gives you. However, it does mean that you make the most important thing is you make the downforce further towards the front axle than you would with a conventional diffuser, which means in combination with a couple of front diffusers we've hidden in the wheel arch, we don't need splitters to get enough downforce to make the car stable.
And yet you've still got stability, I assume, at well over 200 miles an hour, which is what this car will no doubt be able to do.
Absolutely, yeah. This 50 has got reasonable downforce, but not a huge amount of downforce, and this has got a little bit less, but it's still got more than you need to make the car stable.
Yeah. And also I know that another reason you don't want splitters and skirts and various things like that is that you think they're ugly and they date. Are you after a timeless design here?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a car I've had in my head, honestly, for 25 years, long before T50. Yeah. I've always wanted to do a car with all my favorite 1960s sports and sports racing car influences. I mean, that's my period, if you like, Sure. Not in any way retro at all. But, just bits of the proportion, styling. I love the styling, I always have on cars, you know, and I've got a great little team of people. I work with Kevin Richards, who's my creative director, and a really small team of very talented people. And from my early sketches of what I want, you know, we've actually achieved, I think, something even better than I'd hoped for. So this is a mixture, a melange of all my little favorite 60s bits, but in a modern shape.
I mean, you could look at, as I'm looking at it now, you could be looking at a 1960s, the bits of the Lamborghini Miura that are little, you know, little bits that are coming to me, and yet it's not old-fashioned.
It's just classic, you know, the cars that don't date are classic proportions and classic shapes and curves. And what people tend to do these days, they actually have some of that in the car, but then they puncture the car with all sorts of ducts and holes, and you lose that form. And we wanted a car that would still look good in 20, 30 years' time.
Let's just go around the car then. So, and the bodywork is all carbon fibre, I think.
Everything's carbon, yeah.
Yeah. And obviously for lightweight and so on. But the monocoque, unlike the T.50 and the F1, now the F1 of course was the world's first carbon monocoque road car, and the T.50 is fully carbon as well, which is still very unusual today in cars. This is not fully carbon. Why is that?
No, it's we wanted to differentiate the car entirely from 50. We also wanted to form an architecture that would take us forward into the next decade or so. And as you know, we developed this iStream high volume technology in GMD. Well, this is a low volume, expensive take on iStream. We call it super light. And it's the same principle. So we have an aluminium frame that runs from the front to the back of the car. But the central bit is we have bonded carbon fiber cored honeycomb panels. And when they're all bonded in, you have a central monocoque that is like a safety cell, which is extremely safe and rigid. And we also have a little bit of that in the engine bay as well. So you could say from the back axle to here is your carbon monocoque, and then the front crash structure and suspension mounting is on an aluminium frame. But no bolted joints, which are heavy and flexible.
But 1,100 kilograms or just under is still incredibly light. Why is this car so much lighter, say, than Ferraris or Lamborghinis at that time?
It's the designers, the team now at GMA and GMD. It's a state of mind. You know, everything you look at and everything you before you switch your CAD machine on or pick up a pencil, you've got to be thinking lightweight.
You've got to justify the certain length of bolts.
Absolutely, and the same rigorous attention to detail we applied to T.50 is also being applied to this, because we're still 300 kilos lighter than the average supercar.
No, sure. And doors, dihedral doors, like the T.50 and like...
Yeah, the closures on this are a bit of fun. So the doors are dihedral, just like 50. The front luggage compartment is a rear hinge, more conventional.
Yeah. So more luggage space than T.50.
Indeed, yes, 280 litres on this. There's 2 cases in the front and 2 cases each side, so 6 cases altogether. And the rear luggage compartment, this is the shut line round here, and this whole side of the car hinges at the rear by the tail line and opens sideways.
And you put the luggage in
so you top load the side bins from here, I
always thought on the F1 those helicopter style panniers were absolute work of genius to use that area that in most cars is just utterly redundant. Now also looking, one thing I notice on all your cars, F1, T.50, and this is comparatively small wheels and tyres.
Yep.
I mean, so often on supercars now you're looking at 22s, 23s.
I know.
Why comparatively, not small, but comparatively
Well, from a width point of view and a tyre size point of view, that's absolutely proportional to the lightweight. So we just don't need anything more than 295. From a diameter point of view, I'm not a great fan of big diameter wheels from a proportions point of view, but also they're high inertia and they're heavy. So we worked out exactly what we needed to package the brakes and make the car look good from a proportion point of view. And it's 19-inch on the front and 20 on the rear, and that's really all you need.
That's all you need, yeah. Okay, so moving towards the back, this is the one bit of aero that there is obviously lots of aero going on, but this pops up at speed,
so that's a conventional spoiler. But of course, now that we've got this passive boundary layer control, it's this base suction that makes the diffuser behind the Venturi work well. And as you pop this up, you increase the base suction, and that makes that work even more effectively. So once again, this works in conjunction with the passive boundary layer, but the driver also has a high downforce mode, and we have a brake assist mode as well.
Yeah. Now we'll see the engine in a minute, which of course goes just there. It's obviously a mid-engine car. But one thing is, no turbo. Everyone's doing turbos now, apart from Gordon Murray. Why no turbo?
It's just the engine response. The combination of that engine on idle response and the lightweight car, the lack of inertia, this car, the T.50, will have the fastest engine response in a car of anything ever built for the road, and this will be a very, very, very close behind it.
And despite what people tell us about turbos with no lag, I read that all the time, you're saying that you just can't get the response out of a turbo.
It's just not possible. It's physically not possible not to have lag. You know, this, having now driven T.50 several times, of course, the instantaneous engine pickup is just mind-boggling. You know, there's no turbo on the planet that will get close to that.
Just remind me, on the dyno, I know the T.50 from memory revs from idle to 12,000 revs in, is it 0.2 of a second?
0.3.
0.3, which
and
is
that's,
just
of course,
mind-boggling.
That's of course at idle, and that's the fun bit. But the actual real-world bit is you have to now couple that to an engine under load and the weight of the car. And when you get the engine under load and a heavier car, a turbo, you need a calendar to keep up. You know.
Also, no hybrid. Everyone's doing hybrids.
This will be our last non-hybrid, unfortunately, but that's a fact of life. We can hang on to the V12. We're a very small company, very flexible, but the T.33 will be the last one.
But you don't, I mean, this is no, you've avoided hybrid because you think a driver's car can be better without a hybrid.
Absolutely, yeah.
Whereas I increasingly read that hybrids give you better throttle response. You know,
yeah, but it's very artificial, isn't it? And it comes with a weight penalty and a complexity. But this will be, once again, a very usable motor car. Great visibility, good ingress, egress, low service costs, great normal ride height, you know, very tractable engine. This produces 75% of the max torque at 2.5. You know. Another wacky bit is this, unlike 50, the airbox is attached directly to the engine. So on the F1 and the 50, the air intake is part of the monocoque. So as soon as you get past the bulkhead, you need a flexible coupling, which is always a bit messy and a bit draggy aero-wise. So on this one, right from my very first sketch, I decided that this would have like a 1970s airbox, which moves with the engine. So this is clearance around here, and this is completely separate.
Wow. We're looking towards the interior. Maybe you just take us through some of the interior highlights, Gordon. I mean, it's not a three-seater. Some people, given your track record with the F1 and the T.50, you invented the three-seater concept. This is a two-seater. Why is that?
Yeah, it's just because, for a few things. Firstly, we promised everybody that T.50 would be the halo car, central driving position, 12,000 revs, sub 1,000 kilos, and it has to be. You know, we promised that, and it was. This also needs to appeal to a slightly broader audience, so it's more conventional in a seating layout. However, the thing it does share with 50 is that absolutely driver-focused analog controls. Still the nice big analog tacho, the 120mm tacho. All the secondary controls are rotary, machined from aluminium, and once again, great haptics and stuff. No touch screens, no column stalks. So that's carried over, the ethos, if you like. It just for me, it takes away from the driving experience. I use an Alpine A110 every day. Lovely little car. But driving quickly, to have to reach over to the center of the car and focus on something that's not over here is really, apart from anything else, a bit dodgy. And it's not a tactile thing, you know. So once again, all the stuff we learned on 50 from a primary and secondary control point of view, and the human-machine interface, we've carried over into this car.
And left or right-hand drive?
Yes, so to make it, again, to broaden the appeal a little bit, we're offering left or right-hand drive. It's full federal type approval, and it's also got an option of a manual or a paddle shift gearbox.
Yeah, that surprises some people too, because you've been a real advocate, of course, of H-gate manuals. That's all the T.50 comes in. And well, you're offering a
I'm beginning to think I made a mistake, though, because we've been quietly pre-selling the cars to people we know very well, and T50 owners obviously, and people that have been in touch since the 50 launch. And we've already sold out over half the cars pre-sold, and a very small percentage of those have picked paddle shifts. So I could have egg on my face, I think.
Well, I know I'd choose an H-gate manual, but still.
Yeah.
And the price, Gordon, because the T50 is 2.38 million, I think, plus
2.36.
I beg your pardon,
plus
plus taxes.
This is 1.37.
Plus taxes. Yeah. And you're already half, more or less.
Yeah, we've over halfway now.
Even though it's not really on sale yet.
No, it isn't on sale. It won't be on sale till the launch. Yeah.
And very unusually for GMA, every car you make will have a maximum production run of 100 cars.
We've made a promise, as one of our 7 principles, that exclusivity is really important to us, just like the customer journey is itself. So we've said whatever model or variant we make will not be more than 100. So this architecture will support 300 cars, but 100 very different motor cars, very different.
Yeah. So it's a very unusual car company model, where every other car company, more or less, including like a Ferrari, the more they sell, the more money they make. That's their model.
Yeah, we're just trying to be different, really. We're finding the customer journey experience for people is very different from the feedback we're getting from T50 owners. Is the customer experience is very different from any other OEM, and we want to keep it that way. And 100 cars guarantees that, really.
Yeah, no. And most of the parts made in Britain. I mean, I know with the T50, certainly it was.
Yeah, once again, I think we were approaching 90% on T50. And I want to try, and we're working very hard with our purchasing department and our engineers to make sure that's better on this car.
Yeah. And the people buying cars like the T50, Gordon, and maybe this as well, I'm assuming with someone like you, with H-gate gearboxes and naturally aspirated engines and no touchscreens, they're probably more the wealthy car enthusiast, not just the car collector.
Definitely. We now know that we've sold out all the 50s, and of course 50Ss are all sold out too. So we know the people, we're meeting all the owners because we're well into the spec sessions for 50. And I'm happy to say that the vast majority of people, we seem to have painted a picture that everybody wants in cars. Most of the people will use the cars and use them a lot. That's what we're seeing, and this is even more usable.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, no. Let's quickly look at your V12 engine. Sure. The heart and soul of every sports car, every supercar is a V12, and this wonderful looking engine sits before us on a plinth. Now, it's developed by Cosworth, who know a thing or two about V12s. Of course, they also developed the Valkyrie Aston Martin V12, although the T50 engine is totally different from the Valkyries.
It is, yeah. It's sort of the next, Cosworth reckon it's like the next generation. Yeah. They obviously had a lot of background knowledge from the Valkyrie engine. For example, the combustion is better because the valves have a compound angle on 50, whereas they're straight on the Valkyrie engine.
And Valkyrie's a hybrid as well, of course, isn't it? It's got hybrid assist.
It's a hybrid, of course, yeah. So,
And Gordon, so this engine, this is obviously, it's different from the T50, it's slightly less powerful. How is it different? And just maybe take me through the mechanical differences and also the power and rev differences.
So what we were able to do, when we said to Cosworth we'd like to knock 1,000 revs off the top, because, the T50 has to be the halo car, and to be honest, on valve springs, 12,000 revs is right on the ragged edge.
And 11,000 is hardly a tardy amount, is it really? So.
Yes, it's still a couple of thousand more than anybody else.
Yes, yes.
That allowed them to have a completely look again at the cams, obviously the mapping for the adjustable valve timing, the cylinder heads, the induction system, the exhaust system. And they've produced an engine that still revs to 12, still makes 615 PS, but it's got even more low-down torque. Now I've driven T50 several times. I still can't believe that the torque delivery from 2,000 revs, it's just so drivable. But this is even more so. So this makes 75% of its max torque at 2.5, but more importantly, it's about 450 Newton meters max torque, but it makes more than 440 between 4.5 and 10.5.
Yeah. And redline 11.1, did you say?
11.1, yeah. Yeah.
And maximum power again?
615.
615, so slightly down on T50.
Yeah.
But even more drivable.
Yeah, so it's, if you like, it's, if anybody thinks, 600 horsepower these days, you get a lot of, I don't care, I'm not looking at 0 to 60 times and things, but if anybody thinks this car's not going to feel quick, this power to weight is just slightly shy of a LaFerrari. So it's going to be a mighty motor car.
And you're unusual in not caring about 0 to 60s or Nürburgring lap times, because that's endlessly what we're being told by rival manufacturers.
For two reasons, really simple. The first one is it's completely pointless. If you compromise everything else on a car for a lap time, somebody will go quicker.
Yeah, sure.
If you compromise everything on a car for a top speed, somebody will go quicker. I still can't believe, in fact, that the F1 is still the world's fastest normally aspirated motor car.
No.
I thought by now somebody would have eclipsed that.
Sure.
The other reason is actually we focus so much on the driving pleasure and the driver focus to make this a car you want to get out of, turn around and have another look, get back in and have another drive. That if you start focusing even for a split second on making a 0 to 60 time 1/10 quicker, you compromise the rest. And that's why when we did 50, the 50S was a completely separate program, because I didn't want to think about a track car when we were doing the road car, and we've made the ultimate track car without bothering about the road car.
No. So will all your cars, GMA cars, driving focus, that will be the 100 maximum, but that's the focus of everything you make?
Driving perfection is our motto, basically. That's our flag, if you like, and everything must give way for that.
So the T.33 supercar uses a naturally aspirated V12 engine that revs to over 11,000 revs. It's small, it's light, and I think it looks beautiful. It's hard to imagine there'll be a more desirable supercar launched in 2023. Thank you for watching.